So, hi, Steffen, how's it going?
Everything is going well so far. We get a lot of very positive feedback for the new record, Hail the Abyss. And as of now, I'm preparing the show next week where we play probably the entire album for the very first time. So lots of things to do, and there are more shows to come up. There are more tours we're working on. Well, busy times, but very positive times. I'm very happy how everything comes together and where we are right now with the band. So things can't be better, to be honest.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, Thulcandra has just returned from a US tour, right? Where you played with Wolfheart, Flesh God Apocalypse, and also your other band, Obscura. So, how is it to play with both Thulcandra and Obscura on the same stage on the same night?
Well, it's definitely a task you need to handle somehow. A couple of years ago, in 2020, we did a similar tour, but in Europe, when we played Eastern Europe and Scandinavia, actually. And we had a similar setup. But the big difference was Obscura was closing the night. So that was really demanding. So to the North American tour, it was a little bit different since Obscura has been co-headlining with Flash God. So that means first of all, I had all the time to prepare a proper sound check for Thulcandra. Then we had Wolfheart from Finland playing. Then it was Obscura's task. And then we had around 1 hour while Flash God was playing to simply cool down and, relax a little bit, have a breath, and then taking care of the day-to-day duties. So all in all, this entire trip was extremely successful. I think we had 9 or 10 sold-out shows.
Great.
And the venues have been quite packed. And so was the introduction for Thulcandra. That was really impressive how positive this band got picked up. I mean, the band has some history. We are around 20 years old now, and we never made it over the ocean. So it was kind of a situation where you don't know what to expect. It can happen that people simply, well, don't care at all, because that's one of those new European bands coming over. But we've been surprised. There have been a lot of people showing up for the band, coming early to the show, and, well, supporting Thulcandra from day one, from the first minute on. And the only negative thing was the fact that we had to play only roughly half an hour. So we definitely need to come back, I think, early 2024 with a full tour. So things are evolving, and with this first step, playing a North American tour with Thulcandra, I think we've been very lucky to introduce the band within those circumstances. So excellent, really excellent. And aside all that, all the bands we've been touring with have been excellent personalities. So Flash God Apocalypse, Wolfheart, and of course the two bands, I know them, but this entire setup of people was simply great. Everybody helped each other. It was a supportive effort, and I would love to tour with any of those bands in a heartbeat again.
Oh, that's fantastic, especially the lineup being such different sounding bands. It's all extreme metal, but somehow they're different, right? And the people that listen to technical death are definitely different from the people that listen to black metal or Black and Death, for that matter, which is Thulcandra's sound. So it's always great to see that people are more eclectic than you might think, right?
Well, we are all fans ourselves, so I'm not sure if I want to see a tour package with 4 or 5 bands sounding exactly the same. So the more diverse, the better within a certain scene. So in this case, it turned out quite well. In others, maybe the differences are too big. You never know. You never know how people react in the end, but in this case, I would say everybody did everything right.
Fantastic. That's great. So your band, Thulcandra, is about to release Hail the Abyss, right? Your 5th album. So the first post-pandemic one, because the last one, A Dying Wish, came out during the pandemic. So how was the writing process for this album?
The entire writing was quite smooth compared to the previous record. First of all, we didn't expect to be back on the road that soon. So when the previous record, A Dying Wish, has been released, we tried to play a couple of shows. We played mostly in Germany. I think we only played in Germany, to be honest. And even there, a couple of shows or legs of tours had been canceled because there have been new restrictions last minute. So that was kind of frustrating. And instead of forcing the situation and waiting even longer, we just said, okay, hey, guys, we just love to play music right now, so let's take the chance and write a new album. And since we had almost the same lineup with both guitarists delivering the skeletons and most of the ideas of the songs, and the same studios where we recorded, and also with Dan Swane, a very, very respected and experienced mixing engineer in our back. So basically it was the same dream team as before, and that made everything way easier. What we changed is simply the fact that we tried to get a little bit more diverse than on the previous record. On A Dying Wish, we figured even very slow songs somehow work for Thulcandra. We never changed the style, but we tried to bring up a little bit more diversity when it comes to not only dynamics, but also to the tempos. Most of the bands try to play faster and faster and faster. We try to do both. So with the closing song on this new album, I think we almost wrote a doom ballad something, but somehow it's the same vibe that goes through the entire record, and it fits to the rest of the songs. So long story short, I think the entire idea of this album was writing a record that doesn't repeat itself. So each song on the record is entirely different, but still you can hear it's the same band performing. And I'm very happy this turned out as it turned out. I'm not sure if everybody will like it, but we are very happy about it. And as I mentioned, we want to play the entire record from to end, and this works even in a live setting. As I said, I don't want to hear the same four bands sounding exactly the same. I don't want to hear a band that playing the same song over and over again. So if you think about that, we simply try to keep everything entertained, ourselves as well as the audience, and we will see how that goes.
Yeah, that's part of the magic. I always think of this thing is said that the band has its distinctive sound, but all the songs sound different. It always takes me to Alice in Chains, which when you hear an Alice in Chains song, you know it's them, right? But somehow all the songs are different, and it's never boring, you know. But it's this magic place that they found, this magic formula they found, and it's them, and it's amazing, and all the songs are different. And you guys have that too, you know, by the way.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very huge compliment. And I take it as that. Thank you.
Yes, it is. So this album has a more old school feel to it. I felt that with A Dying Wish, but this one is a little bit more, I mean, you know, to my ears. So how is it that you're able to bring that old school kind of vibe, but still sound very new and interesting? Because as I said before, all the songs are different, and what you're doing is new and interesting.
I think there are two main factors. One is, or the first, and I would say the most rethinkable, is the fact that we don't polish anything. You hear a real band performing. This is not edited to the max. We don't push all the drums to the grid. We are not, well, pro tooling all the iTracks or edit everything out of it, simply because, first of all, the music offers this freedom. It's not that on the edge that you have to do it. On the second part, you would kill or cut out all the personal approach of each musician. If I would trigger to death all toms, all kicks and everything, then half of the personality of the drummer is gone. And the same goes to the guitarist. So I rather keep a certain raw rock and roll feeling. And there are some parts that are not, well, if you really analyze it, that are not super extremely tight, but we thought, okay, this is musical. This is somehow transferring or transponding how the guitarist grooves with the bass and the drums, and therefore we just kept it. And that is a little bit the opposite of what you hear from many recent productions where everything has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And Thulcandra is basically the imperfection itself.
No,
And
but it's not imperfection because you guys are good musicians. Just a parenthesis, right? It's just human.
that's a good point. It's absolutely human. You hear a real band playing. It's not a project somebody does in his living room or in his kitchen somehow on a Mac. It's a real band performing, and I love this feeling. This is also the big difference between those early mid-90s records that have been recorded in the same style, in the same musical style. But back then they didn't analyze everything and overproduced everything because they couldn't. First of all, there was not the technique, not the gear. Second, studio time was very expensive.
Yeah.
And therefore, each band had a more individual and original character. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And we want to keep that somehow.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And this is part of why your band is so good. So the music videos released so far, they seem connected for this album, right? As I walk through the gateway and hail the abyss, they're both centered around a female character that sort of undergoes a transformation. So what was the concept behind these videos? And I understand Group of 13 was part of the production of at least the last one. So can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yes. First of all, we worked with Group of 13 on the previous album as well for one video clip. And it clicked a lot. So the gentleman, the entire team, it's like a collective of people, depending on the project, it's a bigger team or a smaller team. And they really know what to do. And they understood the band very well. And aside from the business part, also on a personal level, we get along very, very well. So we decided, okay, after A Dying Wish, this was really nice. Also, the outcome, the video clip turned out really lovely. We wanted to work with them again. So we reached out to them and asked, hey, this time we would like to produce 2 video clips. And in return, they came up with this entire script. So they got the demo recordings of the songs, of those 2 singles. So we choose the singles, they got the demo recordings, they got the lyrics, and they came up with the entire script. So one person within their team had this idea, and it was a little bit a back and forth in how we are going to approach it, but it was a very smooth and easy process to come up with those videos. In the end, we traveled to Poland, to Wrocław, to record, to produce those videos, I think in 2 or 3 days. So the band has been there 1 day, and they rented the entire castle. So what you see is not CGI, it's a real castle and real flames. We burned our drummer a little bit.
Oh my God.
Not too hard, but it was hot enough that he thought his skin and his headphones are one piece now. So so we had some stories to tell, but to record or produce 2 video clips of this quality 1 day is really, really not a lot. So that came together very, very nice. And we hope to continue the cooperation with Group of 13, simply because they are great people to work with. And second, those videos are also somehow part of the band now, because this is the 2nd album with the same look of the video clips. So I like to stick to dream teams. I always work with people on the long term. So I would love to think about working on more video clips. Maybe for this album, if it turns out, maybe for the next album, who knows? But I can just recommend the gentlemen at Group of 13 and everything they do.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, they do great work with Behemoth as well, right? Yeah, so Blood of Slaves, the latest single from the album, is one of Thulcandra's most brutal songs to date, in my opinion. I don't know if I'm correct about this, but other songs like on the Wings of Cosmic Fire are more mid-tempo and kind of groovy. So how do you reach such a perfect balance between songs like, you know, harsher and less harsh when you're writing an album?
I think it's the fact that we have not only one songwriter, we are an entire band, and everybody has different taste and also a different musical background, but everybody brings in ideas. When it comes to songwriting, we have two guitarists with a little bit different background, and both of them write songs. You mentioned Blood of Slaves. That entire song was written by our guitarist Mariano Delastic. He came up with the entire thing front to end, and he's definitely the guy coming up with most of those very fast, very aggressive and sharp riffs. And well, this is part of the band now. I'm more the guy thinking about harmonies, adding a little bit more old school heavy metal, and together with the rhythm section, the bassist and drummer, we arrange our songs. So you have one main idea from the two guitarists, but in the end, it's the entire band that somehow participates in writing and delivering the album in each song. So everybody somehow has a certain touch on each song. And that's, in my opinion, the reason for this wide diversity, because you have many people that simply work together, that have a different background, but still love the same kind of musical framework we play with Thulcandra. So you have the basis and you have all those influences, and in return, you get a diverse album like we just delivered, Hail the Abyss.
Yeah, that's great. So the cover art, it's really beautiful, as usual, for Thulcandra. And it feels connected to the previous ones. It's icy cold and kind of bluish gray with the same messenger of death, kind of, robed Grim Reaper creature at its center. So can you talk a little bit about what conceptually goes on behind this beautiful artwork?
Yes, it's again the dream team. Herbert Lochner also created the artwork for the previous record, and he's painting with oil on canvas. So this is also connected to the whole musical approach. We want handmade art. We don't want to see a Photoshop image on our album because it would not fit. We really need somebody who handcrafts a certain artwork. And with Herbert, we have this connection with the previous record. He will also do another one because we have something else in the pipeline for the moment. And this simply fits very, very well to the band. We have a certain approach. Of course, we have the color blue. We have a certain, so I wouldn't call it mascot, but the Death Reaper has always been part of the band since the very first album, since Fallen Angels Dominion. And we simply want to keep that. While Christian Wahlen, the Necrolord, came up with 3 beautiful artworks for the first 3 records. Now the second, let's call it second chapter of the band, is bound to Herbert Lochner is with the artworks, Dan Swanö, who produced both of the records with the same artworks, the same style of artworks, and also the studios we work with. So I see it as a new chapter of the band while we still keep what we did before. So it's a very sublime, tiny little change, but people figured it somehow. So that's kind of lovely.
Yeah, that's true. So your other band, Obscura, has albums that are conceptually linked together. But even though there's like a unity in sound and artwork, as we've just talked about, Thulcandra feels more spontaneous. Right? So is this album, Hail the Abyss, at all linked to the previous one, a dying wish, like in a conceptual way, or no? Is it more free?
It's definitely more free, but we have songs that are linked. Not directly, but somehow linked. As I mentioned, this very, very slow song that ends the album closer of this album, the final closer. This is definitely linked to the title track of the previous record, simply because I thought, okay, how low we can go. And this was even below that line. And a couple of those ideas. But to speak of a real conceptual connection between the musical approach, similar to Obscura, we are far away. Both bands work entirely different, and I also wanted to keep it like that. Both bands have a different musical approach, also when it comes to production, to touring abilities. For me, those are 2 entirely separated bands. And I was just making sure all the years, Thulcandra is not seen as a side project. It's a real band. It's just, it's a different setting. because we cannot become a touring band. We are bound to be a band that is very picky about live shows because the other three members have regular day-to-day jobs. I'm the only, let's call it, a professional musician. I make a living out of this. So I have a little bit more freedom. But still, we rehearse regularly. We celebrate every time we meet together, and it's a real band. The only difference is, well, we are not going to tour 200 shows a year. But to be honest, I think that's even better. I don't want to play on every festival every year. I'd rather play those festivals, if I can choose it, where I know we are welcome, where I know the circumstances for everybody are nice and cool, and make every show something special.
So changing the subject a little bit. So how has it been for you as both a guitarist and a vocalist? So when you're on stage playing live, what's your main focus?
To be the entertainer to the crowd, to be honest. I don't think about playing guitar on stage. Not at all. This is entirely on autopilot. I'd rather focus on the intensity of doing live vocals and interacting with the crowd. This is my main job on the stage. In the studio, it's different, but that somehow came naturally since I think 2003, four, I think I took over vocals in Obscura, and since then it's one unit. I think playing guitar only on stage or singing only would feel kind of naked.
I understand. And what about the way that music has been distributed in the past few years? There's a tendency by the audience to have a short attention span. Listening to a whole album somehow is not what everybody does anymore. I'm old school. I like to listen to whole albums. I understand that sometimes there's a concept, and even if there isn't, there is a unity of sound there. But especially younger people, they have a very short attention span. So how do you feel about that? And also the way that streaming services compensate artists financially?
That's a very wide question.
Yes.
First of all, I love the album format, but I also tend not to overdo it. For me, the perfect format is around 45 to 50 minutes, except you have very, very long songs. There are always exceptions and bands that can do it, but rather say what you have to say instead of extending everything just to have another song on the record. So in the end, I take a lot of time to sit down and make a proper set list or track list, so to say, for the records, because I'm listing an entire album front to end. And to come back to the second part of the question, I think if you're listening to Deezer, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, or YouTube Music, whatever outlet you're using, they also play the entire record front to end. So if you're using this kind of outlet, I think it's not that far from back in the days. The only difference is that you have a sheer endless amount of new releases every month, because it's way easier to put out music these days. It's easy to record music. It's easy to buy instruments. When I started, I had to import instruments from the States because over here I couldn't get a BC Rich or Jackson guitar for a moderate price. So stuff like that. Sometimes the simple things that changed the whole scene a lot. And when it comes to payments, I wouldn't see it that bad, to be honest. These days, there's more money made with music than, let's say, 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It's a matter of fact. More music is going to be consumed, much more. And the question is where and how to distribute this kind of music. If you're an artist, you simply have to understand how this world works these days. And to blame all the digital times that not only came by with streaming, but also before with the download era or P2P shared files, all of that, or ripped CDs before.
the music scene was constantly changing. Every 10 years, there's a different format coming up, and you always had to pick up with somehow arranging yourself and survive. Or maybe it's a blessing. Sometimes it's really bad. Sometimes it has to go back in balance. But in the end, somehow there are always artists that survive. There are always artists that throw in the towel quite soon. Somehow there's no difference in quality. It's the big picture of each artist, how to present yourself. Are you a live band? Are you maybe more made for a studio band? Quality will always come through. And there are so many nice, great bands coming up these days. I just discovered, because of friends showing me some links, that I follow them and bought records from them. So but I wouldn't say everything like really, really bad these days. Of course, combined with the pandemic and the low streaming, things are not ideal, but there are other parts of income. It's always a matter of how the market stabilizes itself and how everything comes back into balance before the next chapter comes. So who knows what's the next big thing after streaming. But as a matter of fact, all music lovers, it doesn't matter what kind of musical style you're following, the more convenient you get good quality of sounds, that's where everybody goes to. That's where everybody's falling to. That's why Spotify is so successful, in my opinion. Not only one, but many of them. So let's see what comes next. And until then, we just go on, we march on, we do what we want to do, and still look at what is going on everywhere. That's also the reason why we produced music videos. First of all, I like it. I love this format. I love producing music videos. That's actually part of my profession. And second, you reach through this portal, in this case, YouTube, Vimeo, or anything else, you reach millions of possible fans that you would have never really reached in the 80s, when you just released on an underground label in I don't know, Scandinavia, 2,000 CDs. No one would have listened to you except those 2,000 buying that, and maybe their friends. And these days it's just different. You just have to find a way to, well, get some reach and get your word out. It's not that much different than back in the days. Just the format and the portal is different. So that was a very long answer, but I tried to.
It was also a long question, but I have to ask you about Obscura also. So are you working on a new album yet? And anything in sight?
I just came back on Saturday from Studio Fredman in Sweden, and we mixed something nice. So there will be some news very soon. More I don't want to say yet, but I'm working on new material on, I think we start in June. Yeah, mid of June. We start the week, and then let's see. There's more to come. We have a lot of very exciting news coming up. Also with the old material, the entire catalog will be re-released on vinyl because simply there's the demand.
Great.
And most of the albums have been sold out since years. So I'm very happy about it. Also about new tours, not only with Obscura but also Thulcandra. Things are picking up, and it's a lot of work, but I'm very happy where we are with both bands at the moment. It's exciting. Everybody says, oh, the world is going down, everything sucks, it's bad. It was always like that. you just have to find your own way through that. Then it works.
That's true. So before we go, so you talked about tour dates. Is Thulcandra going to tour? You just finished the US tour. Are you guys going to tour Europe with Thulcandra?
We are looking for the right tour at the moment. We are talking to a couple of bands, but as of now, we have 9, or I think there will be a 10th show announced very soon. 9 festivals in Germany, in our home country. But when we get the chance to play somewhere else, of course, we would love to do it if the circumstances are right. And I'm not talking about money in general. It's an underground band. We simply want to see that we play in front of the right audience. I'm not sure if Thulcandra will work at a prog festival.
Yeah. So thank you, Steffen, so much for this interview, and I wish you like a lot of success for your future. All right?
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you. And
Thank
well,
you.
have a nice evening and probably see you somewhere, somewhen in this world.
Yes, yes, that's true. I would love to see you guys play live. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.